The funeral director was still adjusting Marcus's tie when my sister pulled me aside. I could barely see through my tears, barely stand on legs that felt like water, barely comprehend that my husband of 8 years was lying in that mahogany casket, gone at 32 from an aneurysm that stole him in his sleep. Isabelle, my sister Chloe whispered, her manicured nails digging into my black dress sleeve. We need to talk about the life insurance. I blinked, certain I misheard. Marcus had been dead for 4 days. 4 days of me screaming into his pillow, wearing his cologne, playing his voicemail just to hear him say, "Hey babe, running late, love you." And she wanted to talk about money. What? My voice came out raw, shredded from crying. The life insurance, she repeated, slower, like I was stupid. I'm getting married in 6 months, Ryan, and I need it more than you do. The room tilted. Behind her, Mom nodded approvingly, her pearls catching the funeral home's soft lighting. She's right, Isabelle. You don't have kids. Chloe deserves a perfect wedding. You had your chance. Had my chance. Like marriage was a lottery ticket and mine had been cashed out by death. Are you seriously asking for my husband's life insurance at his funeral? I whispered. Chloe rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you need $1 million to sit around and cry. I need it for the venue, the dress, the honeymoon. This is my once-in-a-lifetime moment. Marcus's mother, Grace, was walking toward us, her face swollen from grief. I watched her adjust the photo board, pictures of Marcus coaching Little League, building houses with Habitat for Humanity, our wedding photo where he crying as I walked down the aisle. Besides, Mom added, straightening my hair like I was 5, you're young. You'll remarry. Chloe's wedding is in 6 months. We need to start planning now. He's not even in the ground yet, I said numbly. Which is why we need to handle this efficiently, Mom said. Sign the papers over to Chloe after the service. We'll consider it our wedding gift from Marcus. Our gift. From my dead husband. To my sister who called him boring and too safe throughout our entire marriage. I looked at Chloe, really looked at her. Perfect blonde highlights, fresh spray tan for the funeral. The black dress she'd bought last week that she called versatile enough for the wedding circuit after this depressing stuff is over. She was 26, worked part-time at our dad's company when she felt like it, and had already burned through 2 trust fund payouts. No, I said quietly. Excuse me? Mom's voice sharpened. I said no. Chloe's face flushed. You selfish bitch. You always were jealous of me. Just because your husband died doesn't mean you get to ruin my happiness. People were starting to stare. Marcus's coworkers, our friends, his family. All watching the grieving widow get berated by her family at her husband's funeral. Lower your voice, I hissed. I will not. Chloe stamped her designer heel. Ryan's family is expecting a certain caliber of wedding. Do you know how embarrassing it is that I can't book the country club because my cheap sister won't share? Marcus would want me to be happy. Marcus, who'd driven 3 hours each way to get Chloe from jail when she got in her second DUI. Who'd lent her money she'd never repaid. Who'd bitten his tongue when she'd shown up to our wedding reception 2 hours late and drunk. Grace reached us then, taking in Chloe's red face and my shell-shocked expression. Is everything all right? Just family business, Mom said smoothly. At my son's funeral, Grace's voice was steel. Isabelle's being selfish about the life insurance. Chloe whined. I need it for my wedding. Grace's face went very still. You're asking for Marcus's life insurance. At his funeral. For a wedding. Everyone's acting like I'm a monster. Chloe threw her hands up. It's just money. She doesn't need it. Get out, Grace said quietly. Excuse me? Get out, Grace stepped between us. You want to rob my daughter-in-law while she buries my son. Get out of my funeral home. Mom puffed up. How dare you? I pay for this funeral. Grace cut her off. Every penny, because I knew vultures would circle. I just didn't think they'd be her own family. Security was already moving. Mom and Chloe were escorted out. Chloe shrieking about lawsuits and her wedding. Mom threatening to disown me. The entire funeral watched them go. I made it through the service somehow. Through the burial, where I placed my wedding ring on Marcus's casket because I couldn't bear the thought of him alone without it. Through the reception, where person after person told me how lucky I'd been to have him. Lucky, like love was a scratch-off ticket and mine had paid out in grief. That night, alone in our house, my house now, I sat on the bathroom floor where Marcus had died. The paramedics said it had been instant, no pain. Just gone between heartbeats. I found him that morning, thought he was sleeping late, kissed his cold cheek before I'd realized. My phone had 47 messages, all from Chloe or Mom, escalating from guilt trips to threats to promises that I'd die alone and unloved if I didn't do the right thing. The right thing. I pulled out my laptop and opened Marcus's life insurance policy. $1 million. He'd insisted on it last year, said he wanted me protected just in case. I'd laughed, told him we had decades ahead of us. He'd known. Somehow he'd known. But he'd known something else too. In his files, I found it all. Screenshots of closed messages to him. Years of them. Asking for money, calling me a boring prude, trying to convince him he'd married the wrong sister. The last one was from a week before he died. When are you going to realize Isabelle trapped you? You could have had me. My husband had saved every single one. There was more. Receipts showing he'd lent Chloe over $30,000 over our marriage. Recordings, legal in our state, of phone calls where she threatened to tell Isabelle lies if he didn't pay for her latest emergency. Evidence that she'd stolen my credit card information twice. And then, the kicker, emails between Mom and Chloe from 3 months ago, planning how to get money from us for the wedding. Mom's suggestion: wait for a vulnerable moment, death or illness. People make rash decisions when they're emotional. They planned this. Maybe not Marcus's death, but the vultures circling after. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. By the third night, I had a plan. See, Chloe's wedding wasn't just any wedding. She was marrying Ryan Blackwood, heir to a tech fortune, son of a senator. The wedding was going to be the social event of the year in our city. 400 guests, society pages, the works. And I was going to destroy it. But not the way you'd think. Not with screaming or scenes or violence. No, I was going to use something far more devastating. The truth. First, I accepted their olive branch. Showed up to Mom's house with red eyes and shaking hands. You're right, I sobbed. Marcus would want Chloe to be happy. I'll sign over half the insurance. They believed me instantly. No surprise. They'd always thought I was weak. I knew you'd see reason. Mom cooed, already calculating. Half will cover the venue and catering at least. I want to help plan, I said softly. It'll give me something to focus on. Please. Chloe actually hugged me. I knew you loved me deep down. And maybe being around wedding stuff will help you move on. Who knows? Maybe you'll catch my bouquet. The thought of catching anything at her wedding made me physically ill. But I smiled and nodded and became the perfect sister. For 6 months, I helped plan every detail. Attended every fitting, every tasting, every meeting with florists and photographers. I was supportive, enthusiastic even. Meanwhile, I was documenting everything. Like how Chloe was still texting 3 ex-boyfriends, including explicit photos, while Ryan was deployed overseas with the National Guard. How Mom was skimming from the wedding budget to fund her gambling habit. How they both laughed about scamming the grieving widow in texts they didn't know I could see. Marcus had set up our family cloud storage, and they'd never changed the passwords he'd given them. I hired a private investigator with Marcus's life insurance money. Not to follow Chloe, I had enough evidence of her infidelity, but to dig deeper into Ryan's family. Turns out, the Blackwoods had their own secrets. Tax evasion, embezzlement, a Senate campaign built on fraud. But they didn't know someone was looking. Not yet. The wedding day arrived like a fever dream. June 15th, what would have been Marcus's 33rd birthday. Chloe hadn't remembered, of course. When I'd mentioned it months ago, she'd waved it off. He's dead, Isabelle. Let it go. The country club was perfect. 10,000 roses, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing softly. 400 of the city's most elite citizens in attendance. The senator gave interviews about his beautiful new daughter. Mom preened in her mother of the bride dress that cost more than most people's cars. Chloe was radiant in her $20,000 gown, paid for with my husband's death. I was her maid of honor, she'd insisted. It'll show everyone we're united as a family, she'd said. Really, she'd wanted me to see up close what real happiness looked like. The ceremony began. Ryan stood at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, unaware that his bride had spent the previous night with her ex. The music swelled. Chloe began her walk down the aisle. That's when the first phone chimed. Then another, and another. A symphony of notifications rippling through the crowd. What the hell? Someone whispered. Every guest had received an email. From an anonymous account. Subject line: the truth about the Blackwood Palmer wedding. Attached. Everything. Chloe's affair texts, Mom's embezzlement records, the Blackwood family's fraud documents, and the crown jewel, the recording of Chloe at Marcus's funeral demanding his life insurance for her wedding. The audio echoed through 400 phones. You don't need it. I'm getting married. He's dead anyway. The senator's face went purple. Ryan stared at his phone, then at Chloe, his expression morphing from confusion to horror. Guests were gasping, recording, already posting to social media. Stop. Chloe screamed, dropping her bouquet. Turn them off. But it was too late. The emails kept coming. Screenshots of her calling Ryan, boring in bed. Evidence of Mom's theft from the wedding fund. Photos of Chloe with her ex, timestamp last night. You, she spun to face me. You did this. I stood calmly at the altar, hands folded over my bridesmaid bouquet. Did what? You destroyed my wedding. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You destroyed my life. You demanded my husband's life insurance at his funeral. You turned his death into your shopping spree. You stood over his grave and planned your honeymoon. You said you forgave me. She was sobbing now, mascara running in black rivers. I lied. I shrugged. Just like you lied to Ryan, to everyone. The senator was already leaving, his security detail forming a protective wall. Ryan had backed away from the altar like Chloe was contagious. Guests were fleeing, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal. My wedding. Chloe wailed. My perfect wedding. Paid for with blood money, I said. Every flower, every crystal, every bite of food. Bought with my husband's death. I hope it tastes like ashes. Mom rushed the altar. Fix this. You fix this right now. Can't. I pulled out my phone, showed them the timer. The FBI will be here in about 10 minutes. Turns out they're very interested in the Blackwood family finances. And Mom, that gambling problem of yours, the casino debts you paid with stolen wedding funds, also interesting to certain people. You're our family, Mom shrieked. Marcus was my family. My voice broke for the first time, and you celebrated his death because it funded your party. I walked out as the sirens began, past the ruined cake, the scattered roses, the abandoned gifts. Chloe's sobs echoed behind me. But I didn't turn around. In the parking lot, Grace was waiting by my car. She'd known, of course. Had helped me plan every detail. How do you feel? She asked gently. Empty, I admitted. But also free. He'd be proud, she said, pulling me into a hug. Marcus always said you were stronger than they knew. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Ryan called off the engagement that night. The Blackwood family scandal made national news. The senator resigned in disgrace. Mom was arrested for embezzlement. Chloe lost her job, her social standing, everything. They tried to sue me, of course. But truth is an absolute defense. Every document I'd released was real, every recording legally obtained. Their lawyer dropped them after the first meeting. I used Marcus's life insurance to start a foundation in his name. Scholarships for kids who'd lost parents, grief counseling, everything he would have wanted. Everything that honored his memory instead of desecrating it. Chloe sent one last message 6 months later. I hope you're happy. You're alone just like we said you'd be. But she was wrong. I wasn't alone. I had Grace, who'd become the mother I'd never had. I had Marcus's friends who'd rallied around me. I had the kids at the foundation who hugged me and called me Miss Izzy. And late at night, when I missed him so much I couldn't breathe, I had Marcus's voice on that voicemail. Hey babe, running late. Love you. Love. Not money. Not parties. Not perfect weddings. Just love. They tried to steal that from me to turn it into currency. But love isn't something you can deposit or withdraw. It's something you carry forever, like grief, like strength, like the knowledge that someone once chose you above all others. Chloe had wanted a perfect wedding. Instead, she got a perfect lesson. When you dance on someone's grave, don't be surprised when they rise up to teach you the steps. And me. I got what Marcus had always given me, the last word, the last laugh, and the lasting love that no amount of life insurance could ever replace. The wedding may have been destroyed, but my husband's memory, that was finally, peacefully, at rest.